Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast, where in this edition, of course, we will be discussing Tottenham's trip to Anfield, Liverpool 4, Tottenham Hotspur 3, another defeat on the road for Spurs. Spurs were 3-0 down after 15 minutes, goals from Jones, Diaz and Salah. Some Spurs fans went home at that stage after just 15 minutes. It seemed like it was another Newcastle game, which of course was last week. Harry Kane, Son and Richarlison pulled it back to 3-3. And Jota got Liverpool's winner in the 96th minute, one of the last kicks of the game. A number of Spurs fans yet again sang about Daniel Levy in the away end, but no matter what the score was today, the Spurs fans did not stop singing. Spurs hit the post 3 times in the game, Heung-min Son twice and Romero. Spurs are down to 6th in the Premier League table in a Europa League spot. And Spurs have only won twice in the Premier League Anfield in 33 years, and that was back in 1993 and 2011. As usual, I've got 3 very special guests to talk about today's game. We've got Paralympic gold medalist Richard Whitehead, MBE, back with us, the only man on this channel who brings the trophies and brings the medals. He has another one, of course. He has just completed the London Marathon last weekend. Rich, how are you?
Oh my goodness. Cheers for the intro. Oh my god. Stress levels. Oh my god. How to spoil a weekend, watch Spurs, right? Just like that game. We give every team a 45-minute head start. That first 45 minutes, at least the first 30 minutes, was absolutely shocking. One thing I will say, and we can talk about it later, leadership. Where was it? Where was it? Where was the press? Where was the leadership? Where was the defence? Nowhere to be seen. Nowhere. Look, the season needs to be over as quickly as possible, and then we need to, transform the squad and the actual club. Really, I think we need to transfer the club from the top to the bottom. Women's team is struggling. Men's team is struggling. No leadership. Come on, guys.
We'll get into the football in a minute, Rich. How was the London Marathon last weekend?
Yeah, sick. Yeah, loved it. Weather was terrible. Got some support from the crowd, shouting "Come on, you Spurs!" especially on London Bridge, which was awesome. But London Marathon, for those that haven't done it, it's a great spectacle to run around the streets of London to get the support of fellow Spurs fans on the streets. Was absolutely awesome. Did okay. I was just trotting around, to be honest. And I helped a guy actually on the home straight. 50 minutes ago, somebody collapsed, picked him up in the Spurs spirit. Leave nobody behind. And a fellow runner, we kind of lifted him on his feet, and then he got to the finish as well. So yeah, really enjoyed it.
I saw a video of that. Top work, Rich, as per usual. We've also got actor Andy Linden back with us. Andy, a pleasure to have you back. Of course, best known for his roles on Harry Potter and Count Arthur Strong, been in so many films and TV series, and always somebody who brings a smile to my face no matter what the score is. Andy, welcome back. How are you?
Yeah, sure, good. Well, like everyone else, waiting for the season to end, so and then have a bit of therapy. And then I don't know, and then get ready for the following season, and just hope it ain't going to be anxiety ridden. But yes, I was good. I was good. But as we said earlier on, I mean, that was gut wrenching at the finish. There we are with. That first half, I was looking at that.
We'll come on to the football in a second, Andy. Don't worry. Don't worry. You'll get your say. I know Richard and Andy are very keen to have their say on the game already, but let's introduce the guests first. We've also got YouTuber Patrick Tyrant back with us. Patrick, pleasure to have you back. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. Pleasure to be on with Richard and Andy, and yourself, of course, Chris. Can't fault you for your commitment, Chris. You can see you're on the way back from Anfield, Liverpool. So that's a long journey home. And I commend you for staying. They pan to the cameras of people walking out 15 minutes on. I was like, oh my God, is this going to be 5, 6, and 7s? Thankfully, we showed some. I know we're going to get into the football, so I won't get into that. But I'm heartbroken, man. 3-3 in injury time. I thought fantastic. What a goal for Richarlison. What a way for Richarlison to score his first goal. Get something out of the game, which we all thought was dead and buried. And then our hearts get broken right at the, oh man, yeah, it's typical, isn't it? Typical Spurs. What can I say?
Patrick, let's get straight into it. Let's start the show with you. Let's start by talking about Spurs being 3-0 down after 15 minutes. Jones, Diaz, and Salah. And as you've just said, Spurs fans going home early again. You know, that Newcastle game was bad enough. And, you know, to be 3-0 down again today after 15 minutes, what is it about our starting games so poorly, conceding goals so quickly in matches? And another question for you, Anfield. I absolutely hate going to Anfield, and I always have, because from, you know, for as long as I can remember, 2 wins in the Premier League since the Premier League started back in 1992. 33 years, 1993 and 2011. What is it about Anfield that Spurs just struggle with?
You know what? It's a mentality thing. Honestly, it is. If you break it down, it's just another pitch. You know, it's got 4 corners. It's got a semicircle. It's got a halfway line, 2 goals. It is literally another pitch. And we've put this hoodoo on ourselves. The players have got an awful mentality. They're shrinking violets when the pressure's on. And, you know, these players, of course, some of them aren't good enough. We all know that. There's lots that aren't good enough. But these are guys that have played at the highest level, played on the biggest stages. Most of them are World Cup players. You know, they've played in the biggest stages and grandest stages. And every time when it comes to the crunch, these guys just wilt and melt away. You know, Eric Dyer couldn't string a pass together today. Awful yet again. Romero, I love the guy. I think he's a fantastic defender, but that was so rash at 2-0 down to lunge into the box like that. Yeah. Kane, when he got the ball, he was nowhere near the ball. You know, he took the man out. It's a definite penalty all day long. No leader. You know, Kane, I love the guy to death. But if you want to be captain, where's the lead? Where, you know, you're not screaming at people to get into position. You're not screaming at people to pick themselves up, to go again. Like, play for, even if you're not playing for the badge, play for the name on, like, play for something, your family, the name on the back of the shirt, even though the front of the shirt comes first. But play for some pride. The way these guys are just, you know, Ben Davies come back in. He's been out for a while, so I'm not going to get onto him. But again, he wasn't the greatest. Skip's first touch wasn't that great, but he had a really good second half. But all in all, just a poor performance from top to bottom. Defensively, we're all over the place. Playing a back 4, back 5, it doesn't matter. These guys are leaving gaps all over the park. And Liverpool were up for it, and we won. But it just goes to show, when we were up for it and Liverpool were on the ropes, you know, these guys are human beings. Don't go into the game with fear. Don't give the opposition something to already get behind. And it's like teams can smell blood at the moment and they're just pouncing on us. And the Anfield thing, exactly like you said, Chris, we were speaking before the game and we were both saying we just hope the guys give us something to talk about in terms of pride. And they did for a moment, but all in all, it's another loss. You know, my head's scrambled at the moment. I can't lie. It's just, there's so much going on. But to think that we had pulled something out of that game when we were 3-0 down, I was like, you know what, fantastic. Let's take that away. And then we just go and lose it like that. It's crazy. Yeah, criminal, man, criminal.
Roy writes on the screen now, we're showing that we can play and score goals, so why are we so passive at the start? Yes, our defensive bad, but Lady Luck also seems to be against us. Rich, I'm going to ask you the same question. You know, your thoughts on the match, but after 15 minutes to be 3-0 down to start the game so slowly. I know we're going to get into it. I know we're going to talk about us coming back, you know, to 3-3, and, you know, there was some positives from the game, but 15 minutes into the match to start so slowly yet again in such a huge game.
Yeah, shit ourselves really, didn't we? Even from the mentality from the start, you know, the players in the tunnel, like you just want to see energy. You want to see the up for the fight. I'm not seeing fighters. I think that just too comfortable. Players are not kind of like going for it. Like that first 15 minutes, we were so passive. We didn't press together. We were getting overrun in midfield. Liverpool clearly went, right, Spurs have played midweek. We're going to take advantage of this mentality that's fatigued. Fatigued not only from the game in midweek, but fatigued for all the negativity through the club, fatigued with all the expectation to fail every time they go on the pitch. And I saw that through Kane. I saw that through a lot of the players. And it affects like Sonny. When Sonny's in front of a goal now, last season, he had one-on-one. He thought he's going to score. Now, it's having to bobble or it's having to miss it to go in. For me, the first 15 minutes was kind of a culmination of the things that's wrong with the club. We're not a team now that's proactive in the actual format of the Premier League. Like, teams have moved on and we've stayed stagnant, and that's wrong. We need to have a total transformation, and that includes Daniel Levy as well. I was one of these fans where, like, we've got a great infrastructure, invest in the academy, but no, we need to invest in the players who are going to make us better on the pitch, as well as there's teams out there. You look at the teams like Brighton, and you look at them yesterday and you go, why are Spurs not like this? Why are Spurs not creative like a team like Brighton? And they took the piss out of us when they played them. Really, they should have won, and we came out with the points. That game today, that 4-3, was our season in its entirety. Flattered to deceive in some games, threw it away at the end. Crap at the start of the game. That is our season.
Chris, you're on mute. Chris, you're on mute.
He can't be asked to talk anymore. That's it. He's done.
Andy, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on the game. I completely agree with you, by the way, Rich.
I agree with all of you. Patrick, great points. Same as you, Rich. And all I'm doing is echoing the same thing. But yes, the first 15 minutes, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, you know what? I think that team are going to have to put their hands in their pocket again and refund the fans. And yes, we were better in the second half. Yeah. And as Patrick was saying about leadership, unfortunately, look, I'm glad that Conte's gone. But he vented in that rant some home truths. That team, over the years, I have to say it, not just with Conte, Mourinho as well was pointed out, that team lacks fortitude. It lacks, as Mourinho says, a mental strength. Perhaps it's part of their DNA. I don't know. I mean, I don't mean to ramble on and go on a nostalgia trip here, but you know, good teams, and it's not just having a Messi or Salah it's good teams have big characters in their teams. Now, you guys probably wouldn't remember Dave Mackay. Believe me, mate, Mackay was everything. Imagine Graham Roberts, but with 3 times the skill. The leadership this man had. I remember as a kid, seriously, on the touchline, I was at bottom row in the east stand, right up by the railings. He's turned round. We're losing. He's just turned round and says, "Let's get into these monkeys. Give them iron." And I mean, now like the woke wave would, but I knew what he meant. And just as a schoolboy hearing that, it was like, oh, yes. And he was a player who was highly skilled, defensive midfield player, highly skillful. We had that with Roberts. We've had that. We haven't got, as Patrick was saying, you know, I'm sorry, Harry, you're a legend, but he's not a captain. I'm a traditionalist. I don't believe in a goalkeeper being captain. How can you bark orders when you're 60 yards away from play at times? You can't. I'm afraid to say a lot of our players, look at them last week. Was it 6-1? You've got Kane, Lloris, Dyer. There are players there that have been there 7 years, that have been together. They're meant to be experienced players. And it's farcical, guys. I don't mean to ramble on, but
Andy, do you see any leaders?
No, I don't. That's the problem with the team. I don't. The one who could become one, I actually think Skip could. He's got a good mindset. He may not be a world beater, but as Richard was saying, the problem we have in midfield, it is constantly overrun, and the reason being it's overrun, our wide men are not good enough to occupy a defence. You can't have wing backs who can't defend as well. So consequently, the midfield gets overrun. And if you look at our squad of midfielders, they're either deep lying or defensive. We haven't got one creative midfielder in that squad or a central midfield player. And that is against our ethos. And I'm afraid to say the two managers that we've had, particularly the last one, I think he is the Linda Blair of football, the Antichrist. There we go. If you look at Conte, I think he's got the capability to rotate his set 360 degrees. You know, he is anti-football. And, you know, I think it's been damaging. I really do. It's damaged the academy as well. There's kids leaving Tottenham, I don't mean to ramble on, who have gone to Southampton because they think they're going to get more minutes. He was damaging for the academy, and we have been, as a team, like a lot of teams, we bring kids through over the years. We've brought kids through, and the last one was Kane, possibly Skip. I've had my little rant. But you know, we are in turmoil at the moment. We are a club, as you know, without a manager, without a director of football. Again, from what I've been told, there were members on the board that warned Mr. Levy that this man is under a police investigation, and he didn't take any heed. That's what I've been reading, you know.
Yeah.
We're in football, you know.
I'll come back to you shortly, Andy. Patrick, let's come to you. What have you made of the two games under Ryan Mason so far? Because, of course, a lot of fans didn't like the style of football that we played under Antonio Conte. Ryan Mason has been in charge now for 2 games. Of course, we came back against Manchester United on Thursday night, came back against Liverpool. A lot of comments today in the comments on the stream at the moment are saying that Spurs were unlucky, and perhaps we should have gone on to get a point or even 3 in the game due to poor refereeing decisions. Do you take a lot of today as a positive or not?
There's 2 ways to look at it. I think Ryan Mason will be a good manager. He's really young. He's only 31. I think he's only managed 9 games or something like that in his professional career. I admire the bravery. I admire the risk to try something different. Against Man United, that was a fantastic point on the basis of we had just come off the back of a humiliating defeat, probably one of the worst in our Premier League history or tenure. 6-1 to Newcastle, a team with all due respect should never be beaten us like that, home or away. Got a good point against a good team in Man United. And even today, I mean, we are 3-0 down. He's still naive, but he is very young. So you're going to get that. You know, he's so early on in his managerial career. But to bring it back to 3-3, fantastic. He was quite brave with his substitutions, but I'm going to give with one hand and take with the other. When I saw Lucas Moura warming up to come on, I was thinking, why is this guy on? The guy's been rubbish for us. Take away, I mean, yes, the Champions League run in Amsterdam, he was brilliant, fantastic. But other than that, he's been poor for 3 or 4 years now. Got a really sloppy red card against Everton. Not been playing for the last 3 years. For our last 3 games. Rusty. Every time I've seen him play this season, he's been crap. So I'm thinking, why are you bringing him on right now in the game? Pedro Porro is having a lot of joy on that right-hand side. I don't understand why he came off. And then lo and behold, Lucas Moura gives... It was such a weird pass, a lazy no-look back pass. Jota runs onto it and they win the game. So that for me is on Ryan Mason as well, because I didn't understand that substitution and it didn't need to happen. The game was there. I don't know, my head's scrambled. I can't lie. It's just so much going on. And to lose it in that manner after fighting so hard to come back into it, it really hurt. But I do think he's a good manager. Well, it's too early to really understand how good he is. But I do like what I've seen so far. I like well, I like the second half performances, not the first half. The first half is just as worrying as before. But I have seen something different. I don't know if it's, and it just goes to show it's the same bunch of players. Tactically, he's not really changed that. Well, no, actually, that's a lie. I've seen better patterns of play. I've seen them more engaged on and off the ball. You've seen, I would
Patrick,
say,
isn't it the most frustrating thing, though, all season, no matter who has been the manager, Antonio Conte, Stellini, now Ryan Mason, it is the same things happening in all of these games. To start the game, to concede 3 goals in 15 minutes, particularly after last week's performance. And we have said from literally the opening day of the season, these first half performances have not been good enough. Now, when the players watch the games back, when they've analysed them, which they do at Hotspur Way, they go through the games, they talk about it, they're on the training pitch every single day. How are they not improving? Because I know some people will say, well, these players aren't good enough. We know that they're good enough to give second half performances. We've seen it many times this season that they've performed in the second half. So what is it about starting games where you're thinking, right, we're going to give everything from minute 1? What is it about starting matches so badly?
It is, like I said before, it's a mentality thing, because the guys are capable. They're more than capable. And we've seen it in the World Cup, Champions League, for other teams where they've gone on and won things. Perisic is an accustomed player with a lot of medals. I mean, I keep getting onto Eric Dyer. I think he's so rubbish now. He's so bad compared to this time last year. He was such a good player under Conte, and he's regressed and fallen off the cliff again. And he's looked awful, but we've seen him have better performances, so we know it's in there. Davinson Sanchez, when he first came to us, he was one of the best young centre-backs in Europe. Everyone wanted him. We bought him from Ajax for 40+ million a long time ago. So in today's economy, that would have been 60, 70 million we paid for him. He was a beast and a monster in his first season. And then since then, he's fallen off a cliff. It's not just his fault, though. We've had so many different coaches come in, Conte, Mourinho, Nuno, interim managers, and no one's really coached these players. So they've kind of been neglected. And the ones that aren't good enough to really do it themselves, like your Sons, your Kanes, they've all gone backwards. So there's that. And for me, it's just a mentality thing. And I just think this bunch of players together isn't good enough. There needs to be wholesale changes, bring in some much better players, and then we go again. I don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know who the manager is going to be. Daniel Levy needs to change his whole philosophies and the way he's run the club, because it's not good enough. It's not working. 22 years, 1 trophy, and we're falling behind. Your Brightons are looking good now. Newcastle look really good. Man United look like they're back and they're going to go again. And slowly but surely, we're 6th or 7th at the moment, and that's where we deserve to be. There's no, when you look at the table, there's no false positions now. We are the 6th or 7th best club in the country. Our away record is woeful. I think they showed the chart before as the game was going on. We haven't won in like 10 games away from home. Yeah. That's crazy.
Rich, how are you going to feel when and if the announcement comes out that Eric Dyer's got a new contract at the club?
Oh my goodness! It's not a starting.
It's your place to say it all.
Yeah. I just, the problem with Tottenham as a club is we don't move on these players. If our aspirations are top 4, look at the players that we've got in that starting lineup. What players would you keep if you want us to get into that top 4? There's probably 4, maybe. Do you know what I mean? That's it. The rest we need to move on. And Dyer's one of them. That we needs to move on. And you can't just say, the squad players, and even when they come in, they're just not good enough. Or the manager only believes in 11 players and that's it. The rest of the players, clearly they don't believe in them. They don't see anything in training. They don't see it in their mentality and gameplay. Sanchez definitely needs to go. Like, he's not offered anything for years. Dyer the same. I think we need to be ruthless with those decisions, because we will never move on. We never move on unless we get rid of those players now. Lloris needs to go. Foster needs to go. We need 2 new keepers. Defensively, we've been all over the place since Jan and Toby were at the back. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then creatively in midfield, how many times have I been on this show and said we've not replaced Eriksen? How many? Yeah. That kind of player that can slow the game down and speed it up, and then go through the channels, and a player like that. We need experience. We need a world-class player within that position. We need options, not just the same player that comes on the pitch that goes off the pitch. We need different attributes that come on and add something different in those key moments. And that's what we haven't got. Like Andy was saying, we're overrunning every game. I think that's probably the reason why a lot of our games in the first half, we've always been behind or we've been on the back foot, because the teams have come with pace, which we've probably got one or two players that have got pace with Sonny, and that's probably about it. They've come with the pace, and because we've just sat as a 3 or a 5, they just run through us, and we and that's what we've done every game. And then we've just wound the cog up, and then the second half, after rollicking at half time, they come out and go, right, guys, we're going to play now. And it's just not how we should play from the first minute. We should play the Tottenham way. We should press the teams, have somebody creative in midfield, with Benzema, with Skippy in midfield, really control games and start playing like the Brightons, the Newcastles. Because at the moment, like Patrick was saying, we are 6th, 7th, 8th team in the league. That's where we are. Top 4, miles off. Absolutely miles off. Yep. I was watching some of the games yesterday and thinking, how much are we like a Crystal Palace? How much, like, at least they're playing like attractive football, and yes, they're winning under Roy Hodgson. They're actually winning some games. Us, we're not even giving ourselves a chance to win because we're 2, 3, 4-0 behind before the actual players like play.
They got some good players as well, and it's funny how you should mention Eriksen again, because I feel that we haven't replaced an informed Dele Alli in our team either. You know, with that that creative player who can actually.
You look at that team. You look at that team where we had Eriksen out wide, Dele as a player just behind Sonny and Kane. Do you know what I mean? Like that team, and then you throw into it like a Dembele kind of player. We've got options. We've got a midfield that teams are scared of. They know they're in a battle. Now, Liverpool today knew that if they got on the front foot with us, they'd score 2 or 3 goals. They knew that. You know, straight. You could tell. You could just tell, even from the warm up. Terrible.
Well, as Patrick said about the league table, Spurs are now 6th in the table. We've now played 34, which means we've got 4 games left. We've won 16, drawn 6, and lost 12. We've got a goal difference of +6. We have 54 points. Aston Villa, who we face in a couple of weeks' time, they have exactly the same amount of points as us, same games played. They have got a +4 goal difference. Liverpool now go into 5th spot. They also have a game in hand. Top 4 is just simply not going to happen. It will be mathematically impossible in a couple of games' time. There's absolutely no doubt. Now, Sunday's results, 4 other games took place today. Bournemouth 4, Leeds 1, Fulham 1, Manchester City 2, who go top of the Premier League table now. Manchester United 1, Aston Villa 0, and Newcastle beat Southampton 3-1 at St James's Park. Now, the match stats from today's game, Liverpool v Spurs. Possession, Liverpool had 68% of the ball. Tottenham had 32%. Shots, Liverpool 12, Spurs 10. Shots on target 4. And of course, 4 goals to Tottenham 7. Corners, Liverpool had 5, Spurs 2. And fouls, Liverpool 12, Tottenham 6. Andy, let's come to you. Let's talk about the team lineup today. Ryan Mason made 2 changes to the team that drew 2-2 against Manchester United on Thursday. Ben Davies came in, Kulusevski came in, Lenglet dropped out, as did Richarlison. So the team in full: goalkeeper Forster, back 3 of Romero, Dyer and Davis, wing backs Pedro Porro and Ivan Perisic, in midfield Skip and Højbjerg, and then the front 3 of Kulusevski, Son and Kane. Subs today: Sanchez, Richarlison, Danjuma, Tanganga, Mora, Sarr, Lenglet and Austin, and also Alfred Devine. Referee for today's game is Paul Tierney. 2 changes from Mason today. Were you surprised by that lineup? Were you surprised that Kulusevski come in for Richarlison today? And, of course, Lenglet dropping out, Ben Davies coming back from injury?
I actually thought Richarlison may play today. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I think 50 heading towards 60 mil for a bench warmer, mind. Because he was never going to get. It's a hell of a lot of money to pay. for a bench warmer. One of my arguments is recruitment. What have we recruited in the last 2 or 3 seasons? Legone, I mean, Davis is a good, should we say, honest defender. I would have actually preferred him to Legole as well. I don't think that's a loan that's really worked out. Davis is, as I say, he's an honest player. He's not going to get you where we want to be, top 4. But that applies, in my opinion, to most of the squad. As Richard and Patrick have pointed out, they've been there too long. You die. So someone like even Lloris should have been sold last season. Foster, I know I'm veering away from what you were telling me, is an okay standing, but he's slightly better than Lloris due to normally his distribution. But I think, as Patrick was saying, it's the mental attitude. And Richard was saying the same thing. I mean, it's almost like, particularly away from home, irrespective of what what side we put out there, we are beaten, particularly away from home. You could see it in their body language. And as Patrick pointed out, even our Harry, who is our talisman and who is a legend, he is not of captain qualities. What he put out, well, yeah, he could have had Legole in if he wanted. He could have had maybe Richarlison to begin with, but it may have still been the same. 3-0 down at half time. Yes, we can take comfort maybe from a rallying second half performance. 3-0 down at Anfield to come back 3-0. But, as Patrick said, that fourth goal, it was like, oh, God, and there was just no coming back from that. And it just seemed that all our efforts in that second half, it just seemed all in vain. Maybe tomorrow, once I let it wash all over me, it's very hard to be objective straight after a match, particularly one as gut-wrenching as that. But the side that he put out, well, see, I don't actually believe in the wing-backs and the back 3. I'm really, really hoping that the next manager we get breaks that formation up, because I don't...
Well, can I ask, Andy, are you surprised that Ryan Mason has continued with this formation, or is it that this is all the players know?
Well, when you think about it, yeah, I mean, they've had this for nearly 2 seasons, so it's been drummed into them maybe. But as everyone's pointed out, over the last 2 managers, there's been that, should we say, fear factor. Playing with the handbrake on, for want of a better expression.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm hoping that the next manager we get, God knows who that's going to be, but that eventually we kind of do go to maybe a 4-3-3 formation. You saw the percentage today, 32%. We've had that at home, guys.
Yeah.
36% at home.
Yeah.
At
Many
home, times. I'm being histrionic, but I'm a very old Tottenham fan, been going for years. It's against our ethos, and maybe I'm being a little idealistic now, but we've always had. We pride ourselves as being a passing team, as being a team who started on the front foot. Yeah. Our defence over the years has been a bit flaky, admittedly, but we always try to play football, particularly at home. You boss the midfield, as well as I do, you boss the game. You manage the game.
Sure. And that's been our problem, hasn't it, this season? You just we've been overrun in the midfield, and going back to what you said before, Chris, as well, we've not got that creative midfielder. We've not got a proper central midfielder. We've just got defensive midfielders.
Where's the penetration, guys, from midfield? Where's someone who can run with a ball like a Gascoigne, like a Grealish, like a Maddison? Where is that player? Where's the player with an engine? You look at how intelligent Brighton were yesterday in their movement, in their it's intelligent movement, moving the ball quickly. Not only do we is our movement poor with the ball, it's poor without the ball. We're not quick-witted enough. I don't mean to be damning, but it's just an observation. I've got to prove things as I see them.
I think it says it all when a couple of you already said how well Crystal Palace have played and how well Brighton have played, and we're bigging up teams like that. Patrick, let's come to you. Stephen writes on screen now, we've spent 3 years parking the bus, cannot expect to change that overnight. Going down means that we are forced to press. We look good. It is going to take time for Ryan Mason, isn't it? Or a new manager coming in, because I do agree with that to a certain extent, that the team have played that same way for the last couple of years. Stellini tried to play a back four at Newcastle. Of course, that was an absolute disaster. He had to go back to a back three and the wing back system as well. Would you expect Ryan Mason to continue with this system until the end of the season? And then, of course, it will then change when and if a new manager comes in?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I said it last week. Stellini doing that against Newcastle, a good team, away from home in a really difficult atmosphere and environment, that was suicide. That wasn't the game to start an experiment or try and experiment in, especially a team that we are neck and neck with and is essentially a top 4 6-pointer. It was a really bad time to try it. And it also means that we'll never try it again, which is frustrating because all of us would love to see a back four, pack out the midfield. The problem is, without Bentancur, we don't actually, like Richard's saying, we don't actually have that silky technician, the guy who can, build from defense to midfield to attack. Now we've got people that are just trying to throw that long ball over the top. Sometimes it works, but you need quality. You need a guy with ilk that can drop a shoulder and rotate the other way, like Dembele used to do. And Bentancur is the closest to that. He's so silky and smooth on the ball. He offers goals, assists, but obviously he also gets in there, breaks things up. He just does a bit of everything, like a la Dembele. So when you don't have that, it is difficult. But because we got battered in that Newcastle game, I won't see us going back to a back four again this season, which is a shame because there are certain games where we would like to see that and we know it could work. But of course, all confidence is shot and any manager will have a valid excuse not to try that again. So this back five, unfortunately, we all hate it, but it's here to stay for the rest of the season. But like Richard was saying, next year we have to go back to a back four, get another competent centre-back to partner Romero. Obviously, you have two full-backs, wing backs, whatever. They've got to be able to go forward and go backwards. You know, defensively, a full-back's job is to defend as well as to attack. And sometimes when I look at Pedro Porro, I think he's great going forward. But just like Trent Alexander-Arnold, sometimes his positioning is really bad and he lets his man get behind him. He doesn't know where he's at. And then before you know it, it's a goal. So there's a few things to work on. Unfortunately, it will take a summer and some, better quality additions. In terms of us going, I wouldn't say we looked good. The other comment said we looked good after going a goal or two down. We looked better. I wouldn't say we looked good. There was only a few times in that game where I saw good football, like real good passages of play, moving the ball around, getting people out of position. There was only a few moments, but yes, we looked better because of course we were woeful for the first 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just so disappointed in some of these guys. Like Eric Dyer, sometimes I feel, am I being too harsh on players that aren't good enough? But then other times I'm like, no, these guys are professional footballers. They should be given more. But then I'm also torn between, is Eric Dyer, is this his ceiling? Is this him at his best? So me screaming and shouting and wanting more from him, it's just not realistic because it's not something he can give us. Or is it he's just not applying himself and he's doing stupid things? Because I've seen him last year. When we were on our, quest for top 4 last season, the guy was immense for the last 10 games. He didn't put a foot wrong. Even when Romero got injured, Davinson Sanchez come in and he was a brick wall. We was all worried, oh shit, Sanchez is back in the team. And he was immense. So these guys can do it. So I don't know what's going on. I'm like torn between, but the reality is they're not good enough. Dyer needs to go. Sanchez needs to go. Højbjerg, I used to like him, but I'm sorry, he needs to go. Ben Davies has been here way too long. He needs to go. Hugo Lloris is shot to pieces. He needs to go. I could go on all day. Lucas Moura, thankfully, is going. There's just too many players. Too many players have been here for 6, 7, 8 years, and it's time to shake it up a bit. When you look at other teams in the Premier League, no way have they had this group of players or core players for this long who haven't been successful. If we were winning, everything, then cool, I wouldn't mind it. But even your Liverpools, your Man Cities, they're shaking things up every 2 or 3 years. You'll see Pep get rid of Sane. You're like, well, why has he got rid of him? And then you see him bring someone else in and you understand it. Jurgen Klopp with Mane does the same thing, brings in new players, freshens things up, and they go again. Son and Kane have been together for 8 years. Eric Dyer was playing in our last time. They said a crazy stat. I can't remember what it was, but Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, there's a group of players that have been there for 5, 6 years. And when Pochettino was last here and we played in the Champions League final against Liverpool, 6 or 7 of those guys were in the squad and they're still here now. It's too much.
Well, Eric Dyer will be due a testimonial next year. I'll tell you what, that sounds hell of a rebuild, what you've just said there, Patrick, but I completely agree with you. And when you think of all of those loan players coming back as well, it is hell of a job for somebody to do at the football club. And as Andy rightly pointed out, you've got no Fabio Paratici at the moment at the club either. So it'd be interesting whether Spurs replace him. Scott Munn's coming in on the 1st of July. He has got hell of a job to do. Ryan Mason, a couple of comments here from Ryan Mason after the game. When you give literally the opposition 4 goals without having to earn it, it makes it very difficult. It makes it impossible to win games. Talking to BBC 5 Live on Jota, the Jota boot on Skip, honestly, it's probably the cleanest red card you will ever see on the football pitch. I need an explanation. It endangered the opponent. Rich, let's come to you. Let's get into the game itself. I'm going to do this very quickly because I don't really want to relive these goals individually. 1-0 after 3 minutes. Trent cross, Jones on his left foot. Poor start again from Tottenham. Just 2 minutes later, Gakpo assist, Diaz with the finish. Of course, Diaz hadn't started a game since October, having come back from injury. And then after 13 minutes, Romero brings down Gakpo. Rash challenge, as Patrick rightly said earlier. Rich, let's get on to talking about Christian Romero, because a number of pundits now are even getting on Romero's back, saying that he is just a red card waiting to happen, rash challenges, mistakes. What on earth has happened to our great defender that we bought?
Yeah, so obviously first 2 goals were mistakes by the wing backs, for one. And again, I think it's just pressure. I think Romero is played through the World Cup. Remember, he's World Cup winner. Played all those games. He's got the sole responsibility of the team defensively because he knows the other guys are crap at defending, and you can see that. I think he's fatigued with the Tottenham bullshit. To be honest, the last couple of games he just doesn't seem the same kind of player. He doesn't seem the player that wants to go in and kind of force the play because he knows is a red card waiting to happen. Romero is a player. I think he needs to reflect on the difference of the Premier League and when to press and when not to. He's obviously a threat in the box as well, as he nearly scored today. He's got some great attributes, but he can't do it himself. Like Patrick was saying, like Dyer didn't string two passes together today. Like terrible. Ben Davies needs to go clearly. Every week, 7 out of 10 isn't good enough for Spurs. Like I know there's reliable Ben Davies, but we don't want a reliable back 3 or back 5. We want a dominant back 5 that can interchange, that can go into midfield and just drop back in. That's tight. We should have ball players as our centre backs that can move into midfield, move back, contribute all over the pitch, whether it's goals, whether it's passes, whether it's interplay. And then Romero, I think it's just the pressure now. I think it's going back to your question, Chris, that for him, he's into an environment where he's got a lot of pressure on his head. He's the so-called world-class defender that we've got, that we're going to build the team around. I think he's fatigued. He looks fatigued. Confidence looks like it's getting lower and lower, game on game. End of season will come. not quick enough for him, because he wants kind of a bit of a refresh. Somebody else coming into central partnership with him, and hopefully we can build from there, because we definitely need the Romero that started the season, and definitely not the one that's finished it.
So after 15 minutes, it was 3-0 Salah down the middle for the penalty. Just 7 minutes later, Salah shot just wide. Andy, let's come to you. After 29 minutes, it was our first touch in Liverpool's box after 29 minutes. Harry Kane crossed to Heung-min Son. He missed it, but it was offside anyway. But it took to 29 minutes for us to have our first touch in Liverpool's box.
Yes, that's right. But we are, and have been, and we spoke about earlier on, we are notoriously slow starters.
29 minutes.
That's it.
Yeah, I've seen games this week where we haven't dipped our foot into their penalty area until the 56, whatever. Look, look, the way we're set up, or the way Conte set us up, as this counter-attacking side, a counter-attacking team. That's fine. Problem is, you know, counter-attacking teams know how to soak up pressure, and they know how to sustain the ball, and they know how to distribute it. And when they attack with rapid pace. Now, problem being, we have none of those qualities. None of them. To beat the so-called Ream counter-attacking side. 29 minutes. Yeah, well, because we also, we're not quick-witted enough. As I said earlier on, we don't move the ball quicker. Our movement is poor.
Very poor.
We can't work the ball. With all due respect, I mean, you know, all right, we look at City, but look, it pains me to say it. You look at the arse. Whether you like them or not, they're good on the eye. And one of the things that they do is they play the ball so well between the lines, and so is their movement. We haven't got that, lads. We haven't got. When we break, if we break, we may have Son busting a gut to get into the area. We've got no pace. I've been saying it for seasons now. The Premiership is, in my opinion, the fastest league on the planet. And we've got no pace. There is an alarming lack of pace in that team, be it at the back, in midfield, even going forward. So I'm not surprised it's taken us 29 minutes.
And even the keepers, with the two keepers we've got, couldn't kick shit. Literally, like.
No, I thought it was all right. I think his distribution is okay. It's not that bad.
I'll tell you what, row 5 or 6, he got there about 5 or 6 times today. I thought he was terrible. So not for me.
You know, it's because Lloris, our standards are on the floor with Lloris. So anything
I'm not surprised it's taken nearly half hour to get. We can't handle a press either. We cannot handle a press. And as I say, I know I'm being repetitive, but the club is in turmoil at the minute. We don't know who the next manager is. Paratici is a bigger dodge pot than I am. Yeah, the man got done for fiddling, for Christ's sake. You know, he is. He's a bigger villain than me. And look, we don't know who the manager is. We don't know if Kane's staying. But, you know, all I can say is, I know I'm going off the sort of veering. I'll end it here and there. Look, whoever the next manager is, I just feel, now I'm not a big Enoch Levy fan, but I accept that they are our custodians and we're stuck with them. That's fine. But I will say this. I think it's imperative that the board and Daniel, if you like, get it right. It's imperative, because if they get this one wrong, I believe that it could set us back years.
In the last few games, Andy, in particular, it is constant singing about Daniel Levy. You know, you've got more chants about Daniel Levy at the moment than, say, "Glory, Glory, Tottenham Hotspur" and all of the Tottenham Hotspur songs that the away end and, of course, the home crowd normally sing. When you say about getting it right, what do you mean? What do they need to do? And I know that's probably a really silly question, but please spell it out for me. What they need to do.
I know it's a gamble. I know it is, but look, do your research. Do some research about why is it that teams like Brentford, teams like Brighton, who haven't got our resources or a big stadium, you know, they haven't got sponsorship from Formula One. I mean, the chances are we're going to win a bleeding Grand Prix before we win a football trophy. We'll be waving checker flags about in the stadium.
You know what?
There'll be openers there going, do you remember Graham Hill? I mean, what have we got to do? Do our research. As I said to you, look, the director of football, apparently I have heard that some board members had a quiet word with him to say, look, this man is under police investigation. He still went through with it.
Yeah. Don't you think, though? Don't you think that the board needs to be accountable for the lack of trophies in the times?
Don't you think?
I don't think they're accountable at all. I think what they do is they sack the manager, or they don't even get rid of the
okay, I don't mean to interrupt there, but I think, you know, they should put some football people on the board. Football people that have knowledge of the modern game. Now, I know that, Levy is a great businessman. We all know that. But when it comes to football, I'm sorry to say that there are a catalogue of failings.
You know,
Look, you're not going to get everything right, I agree.
Come on. It does know it's fuck all. It's like not won anything. It's like as a fan, you kind of you look at the weekend and you go, right, we've got a good opportunity here. It's 0-0. Let's go for it. Let's really go for it. Let's show the fans that their hard-earned money is for something. And then you see that today, that first half today, like obviously a lot of people saying they want the refunds at half time and all that kind of jazz. And I was like going, this is just the same all the time. And you could have whoever as a manager and you're going to fail if you're not getting back to above.
Absolutely.
If you're not getting back in, you need the tool. I've always said, you're only as good as your weapons that you can go into a fight with. And at the moment, it's like a fist fight in a gunfight, really. Do you know what I mean?
I just feel that the board needs to bring some football.
We need to have a different board, I think.
But 100%. You're probably right, but we're stuck with them. So it's just an opinion.
Sell up. Just sell up, Levy. Come on, sell up.
Well, I can't see that happening, though. Can you really? Well, he's got Lady Gaga, and I can't wait for the Horse of the Year show.
Cross.
Yeah. No, all jokes aside, they need to put us on the market for a realistic selling price, not 7 billion, 8 billion, something that is obviously unachievable, and sell up. They're not good enough on a football standpoint. We are football fans first. I got involved in Tottenham Hotspur to follow football, not F1, not Lady Gaga, not boxing, not whatever else you want to do. I'm a football fan. I only care about football on the pitch. If football on the pitch is going great, then fantastic. It's good that we've got F1. It's great that we got concerts to subsidize everything else. But when it's not going good, and every time you look at your phone, you've got an email about, oh, there's a new Tottenham golf shirt out. Oh, Lady Gaga's coming to town. Oh, Beyonce's gonna. It just pisses you off because that's not what we're here for.
No, Patrick, I've got to make light of it now because I don't know what to tell you anymore. I agree with you completely. But, you know, who knows? He's probably thinking about monkey tennis.
I think it's because we all expected and were told that money was going to go back onto the pitch. So, of course, when we see that we've got the best stadium, when we see that we've got the best training facilities, we all now want the best team in the Premier League. We want to be challenging. not only just scraping into a European spot, either the top four or a Europa League spot or a Europa Conference League spot. We want to be challenging. We want to be challenging for trophies. We want to be challenging for the Premier League. That is, of course, what all of us want. We want to see success. We want to see entertaining football. We want to see trophies. We want to see the likes of Harry Kane lifting a trophy that should have happened by now. Patrick, let's come to you. Let's go back to the game, because in the 32nd minute, Liverpool had another chance. Harvey Elliott header just wide from a cross. But then we had a period where we could have scored quite a few goals. We did get one back through Harry Kane, but we had a couple of chances. In the 37th minute, Heung-min Son had a shot, cleared off the line. 3 minutes later, Harry Kane scored from a Perisic cross. Kane volley, great finish from him. That is his now 25th league goal this season, the second player to do so in 4 campaigns after Alan Shearer. It seemed quite weird, actually, because Liverpool were in full control of the game, but they conceded after 40 minutes, as I've said, and Harry Kane was waiting in the middle. Pedro Porro was at the back post waiting. The Spurs fans at that point were singing, "We're going to win 4-3." How are you feeling at that point when Spurs pulled that goal back through Harry Kane?
I was thinking, yeah, about time. We've shown something in the game. We've actually put together a decent phase of attacking play. Perisic, fantastic. The way he twisted Virgil van Dijk inside out. A good cross across the goal. Kane, fantastic volley. Game on. And I was like, if we get the next goal, it's definitely game on. And I think Liverpool got too complacent and too cocky. The game was almost too easy for them, and they just took their foot off the gas. And obviously in the Premier League, you can never do that. And dare I say, we're not a good team, but we've got good attacking players. So if you do, switch off and go to sleep, we can punish you. And that's what happened. Liverpool were out of sight. They should have won that game 4 or 5-0 going off the first 15 minutes. But obviously, sometimes it's hard to keep that intensity and that same level up. They dipped their levels. Our level was on the floor. We could only go one way. We increased it a bit, and we kind of came back into the game. The second half started, and again, we pushed and was on the front foot. Very unlucky on another day. Sonny, fantastic shot from outside the box, hit the post. Romero stretching from, I think, was it a Pedro Porro or Perisic cross? I can't remember. Again, it hit the post. We were quite unlucky, unfortunate. Like you said, Sonny having a shot cleared off the line. We definitely had our moments as well. Just, we fought. So one thing I will say is that obviously right now it hurts, and the dust hasn't settled, and we're all looking at it angry that we dropped a point, or the way we lost the game. But we did show fight and desire, because Anfield's one of the hardest games to, one of the stadiums in the world, and to be 3-0 down and come back into it, that does show character, definitely, and it shows something. I know we lost the game, and I know people will talk about that, but to get from where we were to get back into that is something that we can hold on to. And again, we did that against Man United. So there are signs that something is slightly changing. But of course, when you lose the way we did, that's all you're really going to think about. So right now, we're all hurting because of the way we threw the game away. But there are some positives in there. I don't know. It's just the same old saying, though, isn't it? Like Richard said, it's the same old saying. 3-0 down after 15 minutes. I'm looking at my phone like, this is going to be a cricket score. My phone's blowing up. Everyone else is tweeting me, getting at me again. My WhatsApp group's going crazy. Everyone's messaging me, what's going on with Spurs? What's happening? It's happened again. I'm like, oh, man, please don't let. Bank holiday weekend. Do we really need this? So it's just, frustrating, really frustrating. The game was there, not for to be fair, Liverpool were there for the taking. They were on the ropes. And on another day as well, I don't want to be one of these guys moaning about decisions, but how is Jota not sent off for that high foot on Oliver Skip? That's a red card all day long in my books. Yeah. And then Konate put in Richarlison down in the box. Again, that's a penalty. So I don't understand why we didn't get anything in that game. We all admit Romero's was a penalty, but we didn't get anything in that game. And I'm just a bit bemused as to why we never seem to get these decisions.
Teams very rarely get anything at Anfield, if I'm completely honest. Patrick, what did you make of Kulusevski's chance 4 minutes from half-time? In 41st minute, had a chance, saved by Alisson's foot, was then cleared. What have you made of Kulusevski so far this season? Because, of course, he was another fantastic signing, as was Rodrigo Bentancur in the January transfer window for last season, got us top 4 with them two playing so well. But what have you made of him this season? Because I think a lot of people expected so much more from him.
Yeah, very underwhelming, if I'm being honest. But when I look at him, I'm looking at a player low in confidence. I can see that he doesn't believe in himself at the moment. The guy's so talented, can beat a man left foot, right foot, inside, outside. You know, he's good at finishing. He's got good delivery. Usually makes the right decision in terms of either passing or getting his shot off. But this year, since the injury and him coming back, he's not looked himself. I know we've suffered, as in Spurs fans and players in this system. The formation's not allowed our best players to flourish. And I still feel he's just being dragged down. It just looks like he's not really believing in himself at the moment. Just like us who are waiting for the season, as in fans, waiting for the season to finish. He looks like a player who's waiting for the season to finish so he can reset and recharge. It just doesn't look his usual self. And I feel for him because sometimes when you're on that pitch and things aren't going your way, you can almost get swallowed up. And it's almost like he doesn't want the ball. He doesn't want to do the things he's good at. So it's a shame. I really like him. I think he'll come good. Next season, I think you'll see the best of him. It is disappointing considering how good he was, you know, from January to the end of last season to see this drop off. But he is young. He's still acclimatizing to the league and everything else. But yeah, if I'm being honest, disappointed. I expected more, but I also have to put it into context. There's a lot going on as to why he is playing the way he is right now.
Rich, just a minute from half time, Heung-min Son hit the post, ball over the top. Heung-min Son brought it down, hit it with his left foot. It was then offside. Half time, it was 3-1. What I did notice that was quite unusual, Heung-min Son yellow card in the 51st minute, literally rugby tackling a player down, which seems very unusual for Heung-min Son to give away fouls like that and receive a yellow card. Is that where Ryan Mason is saying that, you know, we've got to give a little bit more aggression in some of these games?
For sure, yeah, for sure. And then you think about, obviously, Jota getting a yellow card for what he did, and then Sonny for that.
Yeah.
There's no consistency with the decisions at all. I think the referee had a poor game, really, and he got too emotionally involved with the crowd, I believe. I think he was enjoying the first half too much, and then in the second half he just forgot that he was actually, there was rules within the game and to enforce those rules. And then obviously as Liverpool tailed off, some of their rash play and rash tackles came in, and he wasn't kind of controlling the game. So obviously we were in our ascendancy, and because of that, he should have been refereeing the game accordingly to the rules and not to enjoying the game. I think even at the end of the game, I did see the referee, and he was like, "This is quite a good game that was." And I'm like going, "No, you missed too many decisions. The away team got nothing. We got nothing from that game, like Andy and Patrick said." And I think when he looks back at it, and maybe on the Monday or Tuesday when they analyse the game, they go, actually, Liverpool were quite lucky. But going back to the Kulusevski conversation as well, I think because he's young, obviously the intensity of the Premier League, obviously he's now played over a season of Premier League football, but he's also played a World Cup in between that as well. I think him and Romero, again, fatigue syndrome come into play. There was a couple of times when I just thought he's just not got the legs. There was a one-on-one with Salah when, I don't know who it was, I think it was maybe Pedro Porro pushed it down the wing, and Salah was chasing back, and he beat Kulusevski to the ball, and I was like going, like, we've got no pace. Like, young lad, he's meant to have pace. He's meant to be a player that takes on players, confident in front of goal. I think the chance he had, a little bit more to the right, it'd have probably just about crept in. He didn't hit it purely. I think, again, it was a bit of a scuff. I think he was just wanting to get the shot off rather than actually try and work the player into a better position. But Kulusevski, I think, like Patrick, will be a good player for the future. He's very young. He's now got that season under his belt, and I think he can build on that next year. But we need to have that manager and that methodology to work, make sure the players that are in their best positions and work towards their attributes, and then have plan Bs coming off the bench or options for different games. I think one of the points that I will make is sometimes when I've watched us play at home and away, we've just not been dynamic enough. I think we've tried to play a system away from home that's not worked, and then we've tried to have something different at home, and the players have not really known where they should be. So that first like 20 minutes, I was like going, look, we've got holes all over the place. Like Alexander Arnold looked like a world-class player in that first 20 minutes. He was pinging balls left, right and centre because there were so many gaps. And I think that was a problem. And Kulusevski, again, that first 20 minutes, he was I don't think he touched the ball for the first half an hour.
It was a very different second half, though, Rich, because in the 54th minute, just a minute of madness, because we hit the post twice. Heung-min Son hit the post first, and then, of course, Romero from a cross hit the post. How are you feeling at that point? Because what do you think Ryan Mason said to the players at half time? Because we've seen, like I said earlier, we've seen it so often this season under various different managers that we've come out in the second half like a completely different team with a completely different attitude.
For sure, you're pressing the ball, we were hungry for it. Players, like I don't know what the difference was in the first half to the second half with Skippy, but he was turning with the ball and he was looking for that quick pass. Where the first half, both him and Højbjerg were keeping the ball, trying to pass little dinky 1-2s in between themselves, just getting cut down they were far too slow, lost possession 6 or 7 times. It was ridiculous. Second half, I think they'd obviously had a kick up the arse, but also understood that they could be going into half-time 3-2. They were still in the game. They still had, I think that goal was really important. It gave the team hope. And I think Ryan was obviously kind of trying to work off that and say, look, guys, look, we're still in this game. I still believe that we can get something out of this game. Let's utilise the ball more effectively. Let's take care of that ball and let's try and find space. I think against Man United, what I was noticing is like Kane and Son were heavily marked, so they couldn't turn on the ball. Well, Liverpool, in the second half, they gave Sonny and Harry far too much room to dissect their back four. And obviously, their back four is a bit flaky, not as bad as ours, but is a bit flaky, especially with Trent in the back four.
Andy, let's come to you. In the 57th minute, Pedro Porro had a shot from 20 yards. Alisson saved. 8 minutes later, Jota header over the bar. Spurs then made a sub in the 66th minute. Kulusevski offside on. Van Dijk with a shot just wide in the 73rd minute. And then Spurs pulled another goal back, making it 3-2 in the 77th minute. Heung-min Son with the finish. A great ball through from Romero, but a wonderful finish from Heung-min Son. It's fair to say that Heung-min Son has struggled all season, but what a wonderful finish from him again.
Yeah, I have to say it was, yeah. Do you think it's a coincidence that he has? Look, guys, we know that overall he's had a poor season. If we're brutally honest,
yeah,
Son has had a poor season by his standards.
Yeah.
But I've noticed, and I'm sure you guys have as well, that since Conte's gone, he's actually, do you not think that he's actually stepped up his game? He's come to the front. And he's scored a few more goals recently. Now, I don't know if Ryan Mason said to him, play with the handbrake off, but yes, it was a good goal. And he has, he's taking players on again. And he's scoring again. And perhaps it's just a coincidence. I wish I had the answer, but he is playing better. Poirot, as you guys were saying, maybe he'll be a better player next season. At the moment, I don't mean to be critical. The jury's out for me with him. At the moment, as I say, I don't quite believe in wing backs. This guy can't defend. He's got no sense of positioning. Yeah, he had a shot. It was good, and he actually scored a good goal against Man U. Yeah. He's caught that beautifully, but the outside of his foot, top right hand corner, just where you put the first class stamp. That is lovely goal. Jury's out with him. I agree with Rich and Patrick regarding Kulusevski.
Andy, sorry, can I ask you, Emerson Royale or Pedro Porro for you?
Come on, Chris.
All right, let's be brave.
Come on, man.
At the moment, mean, I've got to say, Emerson, simply for
no chance.
No,
No
man.
That's why I asked. That's why I asked.
you know.
Chris is still disappointed that we got rid of Doherty.
Well, look, to be honest with you, look, you know, I'll soon if I could. I'd be buying Cyril Knowles, mate. Get him back. But,
Oh, my goodness.
look, we paid 42 mil for him. We had a young lad there called Spence who could have played that role. Less than half the money we paid for him, but we overpaid for him. That kid now has been thrown under a bus, in my opinion. You know, that kid had Martinelli in his pocket last season, where Royal, I do believe, got sent off, couldn't handle him. Spence could have done what Poirot done, but I'm sorry to say, Conte, being stubborn and inflexible, threw the kid under a bus. Now he's out in France where he don't want to be. We didn't need Poirot. Look, he may prove me wrong, but
what do you think? What do you think will happen then, Andy, next season? Because of course a new manager will come in, or dare I say it, Ryan Mason could continue the job. We'll come on to that shortly. Your faces just say it all there. But having three right wing backs, Emerson Royal, Pedro Porro, Jed Spence. Who would you play?
Well, I don't know. I think it's become Tottenham's philosophy to collect as many as they can. But who would you play? I want to see us as. I mean, Patrick mentioned it. I'd actually like to see us go to a back four. I really do think we've got to tear up the whole script and start again.
I don't think there is one.
No,
There isn't a script. That's it.
No, I've read it. It's crap.
You didn't take the part on, you know. You didn't take it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know who the next manager is. If I was Nostradamus, guys, I could tell you it'd be Neil Warnock.
Imagine.
But I really don't know. I'd love to see, idealistically, I would love to see a young, bright manager with fresh ideas. Look, guys, why is it that teams like Brentford can do it, Brighton can do it, bring in managers? There aren't managers about that can do it. Why is it that they can do it and we can't?
Because they have a good structure, they have a plan, they have an identity, they have a philosophy. But even if the manager changes, i.e. Graham Potter to De Zerbi, everything else stays the same around them. Their scouting system is second to none. Exactly. They have core values and ideals, and we don't have that. We don't have a DOF because obviously we all know what's going on there. Daniel Levy is not a footballing person. He kept saying he was going to step away from footballing activities and lead that to the football guys. But then every time I read a report, it's Daniel Levy is on the hunt for a new manager. You know, we're looking to sign, for example, I love James Maddison. I think he's a fantastic player. There's a lot of talks that we're in for him in the summer. How can we be in for a guy when we don't have a manager or a DOF? So who's making that decision? I.e. it's Daniel Levy, someone who shouldn't be making footballing decisions. So this is the problem. We just don't have. I mean, Harry Kane sat down with Sky and said that it looks like we've lost our identity since Poch, and he's right. I mean, this is something we could have told you 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So
Patrick,
until all of those things change,
we'll come on to talk about that in a minute.
Okay, cool, no worries.
Yeah. Let's just finish talking about the game, and I'll come on to talk about those subjects, I promise. In the 79th minute, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg had a great chance, headed just wide. And then in the last minute of the game, Danjuma and Lucas Moura came on. Perisic and Pedro Porro went off. Richarlison went down in the penalty area. It looked like he'd been grabbed. And, you know, as you've rightly said, that it should have been a penalty. Then 6 minutes of added time. In the dying seconds, Richarlison scored a header. I can't believe that we are talking about Richarlison scoring his first Premier League goal for Spurs on the 30th of April, 2023, with 4 games to go. Patrick, a great finish from Richarlison, headed it down, went into the back of the net. How are you feeling at that point? Did you really think that we were going to come away from Anfield with a point today?
Yeah, I was celebrating. I got up, I was screaming, I was shouting, let's go, yes, he's done. And I was so happy for Richarlison because he's been under so much stick this season and he's been unlucky. There's been a few tight calls with VAR where he's been so unfortunate. Great finish against Nottingham Forest. And there's a few other close calls or close shaves where he could have had 4, 5, maybe 6 goals now. Obviously, he's been injured as well, not really rotated as much as we would have liked. So very unfortunate. So for him to get his first goal in that manner against Liverpool, I thought it was like a script had been written, especially when he came on, they were booing him because obviously of his Everton, ties. So I thought it was fantastic. He deserved it. We deserved it because it looked like there was only one team pushing to get another goal, and it was us. And then literally within 2 seconds, obviously we all know what happened, and crazy. But I thought fantastic for Richarlison, and hopefully that can spur him on. Like, excuse the pun. There's only a few games left. He's been craving that goal. You can see it. The good thing I like about Richarlison is that even though he hasn't scored, and even though the chips have been against him, he's never shied away. He's never come on and looked, shrugged his shoulders up or not got on with it. He's pressed from the front. He's been a nuisance. Even in games where he hasn't scored, like I think when we were away to Chelsea beginning of the season, he came on and completely changed the game. He's always a pest. He always offers something. Maybe his finishing hasn't been as good as it could have been. Or obviously, sometimes his passing is a bit astray. But I do think there's a player in there, and I do like his commitment. And we talk about players hiding away and not willing to give their all. He is someone that never shies away. He's always on the front foot, always pressing from the front. You can see he cares. The emotion's always there. You see when he scored, he ran to the away fans. I like all that type of stuff. So fantastic thing to get the goal. It's a shame that wasn't, the defining moment of the game.
Rich, when we worked so hard to bring it back to 3-3, and you are talking about literally a few seconds left of the game, how on earth do those players not get over the line and get us a point at Anfield, and we come back, to London celebrating a point after, coming back from 3-0 down after 15 minutes? All of us would have been absolutely ecstatic on this podcast, and of course, people, going back to London today from Anfield. How on earth did we not get over the line and get that draw today?
Mistakes. Frailty at the back. Mismanagement of the game. At that point, it should be everybody behind the ball. None of this, no-look passes. None of this kind of passes back to the keeper. You put that ball rose head anywhere but backwards. You've got seconds left. Literally seconds.
Yeah.
You pass the ball backwards, that's a risk. You put the ball in the stands, they're not going to score from there. Even if he did that, it was just a wrong decision. And even any professional would know, obviously, how important that goal was, how important that goal was to the team. Yeah, it was so, I know every Spurs fan, every Tottenham fan at home was screaming at the screen. I got friends that sent me messages. Yes, that's amazing. Can't believe come back into the game after being dead and buried after 20 minutes. And just the euphoria of actually something to build off. And I think we have got positives from the game, but only small ones. But the amount that we would have got from that if we would have drawn today. But it just shows, like I said at the start, it shows our season. Flat out to deceive. We know we've got the firepower in front. I don't think the system works for all the players. I think Richarlison, in the position he plays, because he's playing out wide, it's not his best position. He's not a Rashford kind of player that can come inside and beat somebody. He's more that kind of somebody that the ball can swing into and he can get on top of it, or he can hold it and then score. So maybe we need to look at that for next season, depending on what we do with Harry. But yeah, just really disappointed. I think when Richarlison scored, I thought first to come away with that and then manage the game. How many games this season have we thrown away games towards the end of the game? Last 15 minutes. I think there was a stat in the Man United game. I think we conceded, is it 10 or 11 goals in the last 15 minutes?
Well, it's really poor starts, Rich, and really poor finishes.
Yeah.
It's the start of games and the end of games.
Yeah. Mentality as well. Patrick said earlier, mentality is obviously really poor. You need to play not to 90 minutes, but 99 minutes now, don't you, really? You need to have that engine. You need to have that mentality to finish games off. But also you need to know if you've got as much as you can get out of the game, there's no way we were going to go on to win that after, because with the amount of attacking players on the pitch, the win or bust mentality, we always bust. So at that point, 3-3, everybody behind the ball. Harry needs to get back. It literally needs to be, we need to be fighting for the ball, not giving it away, fighting for the ball, fighting for the point, and then take that point away from Liverpool. That would have been the ideal today.
Well, Stephen writes here, 2 excellent halves of football. We were forced to high press and we were excellent. So stands to reason. Stop the counter-attack and start high press. We're overthinking this. Now, Andy, I want to come to you. I want to talk about Ryan Mason and the next managerial job. Tottenham, of course, we're all expecting the Spurs to employ a new manager in the summer. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Spurs end up giving the job to Ryan Mason. I really wouldn't, because when you look at the 2 games that he has managed so far, they may see this as a real positive. They may see it as though, we were 2-0 down against Man United. We come back and we drew 2-2. We were 3-0 down at Liverpool. We came back. There's some real positives. You guys have already said there's positives from today. A number of people in the chat have said that there are a lot of positives from today. If Ryan Mason delivers 4 fairly decent performances and decent results and gets us into a European spot, i.e. the Europa League, Andy, do you think that Spurs could offer the job to Ryan Mason on a permanent basis?
I wonder if Daniel Levy is listening to you.
Hold on. I'm not saying that this is what I want. I'm saying that this is a possibility. I'm saying this is a possibility that Tottenham could do this, because if I'm honest, I'm going to ask you all the question as well, who you would like as the manager and who you think Spurs will employ as the manager. Let me just say this before you answer the question. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Spurs went for someone like Brendan Rodgers, but I think that I would love to see someone like Julian Nagelsmann come in at the club right now, because you said, Andy, a young manager with fresh ideas. I believe that Julian Nagelsmann would be that person, but I believe that a manager, certainly now after what we've gone through since Pochettino left, I believe that some manager now coming in, they've got to have control. They've got to have a lot more control than what these previous managers have had. And where we're talking about all these club signings like Dan Juma and Jed Spence that Antonio Conte didn't want, that simply cannot happen. So I think that the club need to change the way that they've done things. Anyway, Andy, over to you with the questions that I've asked.
Look, Ryan Mason, actually, as you said, look, he's actually done a good job. Yes, he has. But my opinion is, look, if you want, Ryan Mason wants to be manager, that's great. The thing is, I think he should, as a young manager, cut his teeth in League 2 or 1. I think, that's right. If you serve his apprenticeship at somewhere, I don't know, like Wimbledon or, look, I've seen quite a bit of League 2. I get myself down the Orient. They play some good enterprising football. And it's nice once in a while to stand up and say, stand up for the champions. You won't hear that a lot down at Tottenham. But, going back to Ryan Mason, yes, why not cut his teeth at a League 1 side or a League 2 where he can gain some experience as a manager and, and have that day-to-day running of a football team. You have a point there, Chris. Perhaps the board will see it as though, well, why don't we get him in? We've got Conference League or whatever the given competition is. If we get 6 or whatever, and we get a bit of Europe, I would just like to see, when I mean a young manager, a young manager that's had some more experience. Nagelsmann could be good, yes. He's done very well at Leipzig, and got the club before he got on. Company would be a risky but interesting choice because, again, I like him as well. The reason being is that he's changed the entire ethos of Burnley. Burnley lost a lot of big players when they went down. He's brought some kids in. He brought some, and it works. Although I know it's a big jump into into the Premiership, but we're talking about a player that's won leagues, that's won recently as well. He could be an interesting choice if we don't get Nagelsmann. But you're right. We'll probably get Brendan Rodgers. You're probably right. We'll probably end up getting Rodgers. But I'm being idealistic. I would like to see a manager that encourages enterprising football, a team that starts on the front foot, a team that believes in a midfield, and that can encourage the youth. Unfortunately, our academy in the last couple of seasons has been, well, it's been damaged. The under-18s are not doing too bad at the moment. They've won a trophy, but the under-21s are seriously suffering, and that is, I think, that's down to Conte didn't help youngsters. He didn't want to know. If we go back to Pochettino, he knew every academy player's first name. He knew who they were, which was encouraging. Anyway, I'm rambling on, but yes, back to Ryan Mason. I think he should cut his teeth on a team maybe in League Two or League One.
Yeah, the under-18s actually are in a cup final this Thursday at Villa Park, playing Aston Villa, so the best of luck to them. If anyone's listening to this on an audio platform, it is worth tuning in to the YouTube version just to see Patrick's face when I mentioned Ryan Mason. And then when Andy mentioned Brendan Rodgers, go to that bit as well, because Patrick's face was an absolute picture on both occasions. Patrick, who would you like to see as the next Spurs boss, and who do you think Spurs will employ?
As fans of a massive football club who pay astronomical prices to go to games and season tickets, we're sold that we're a big club. We moved to the stadium to push our club to the next level, fantastic training facilities, yada, yada, all of this rubbish. And then you're talking about Brendan Rodgers, of all due respect, and even Ryan Mason, who I like the guy, but he's so young in his career. The job's too big for him. It gets swallowed and chewed up alive. We need a good manager to come in and actually... we talk about having no identity. We talk about having no style of play, no philosophy. A manager that comes in and can integrate and bring the youth system, attach it to the club. There's a pathway for the young players coming through. We have so many talented kids that don't ever touch the first team. They have to go to other teams to play. And then we see them a couple of years later and they look fantastic. And we're like, why didn't this guy get a run out? Because the manager's only here for the short term, the here and now, so they can't bring these players in and bring them through. So for me, it has to be a Julian Nagelsmann, or my three from when, as soon as Conte, same thing, but it would have been Nagelsmann, Pochettino, or Marcelo Gallardo. So obviously Pochettino looks like he's almost out of the picture now, which to see him go to Chelsea would be heartbreaking. But my first choice was Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann, by the sounds of it, we're talking to him, sounding him out. He likes the look of the job. We like the look of him. He's only 35. He's young. He's hungry. He's got a point to prove. He plays fantastic football. He's young enough to still not be alienated by the players. He can obviously build them. He coaches well. He's done well wherever he's been at. Even at Munich, I was shocked when they got rid of him because his record there was fantastic. He had won 8 out of 8 in the Champions League. They were like 1 point off top in their league, and he was doing really well there. So for me, he's the obvious pick and the obvious candidate. If it's not Pochettino, it has to be Nagelsmann. All these other guys, they're not good enough. Brendan Rodgers, sorry, the guy isn't good enough. He left Leicester in a big mess. Yes, he won a trophy there, but if you look at the pros and cons, for me, he's not good enough. Bottled a massive title run in at Liverpool where they should have got across the line as well. It's not good enough for me, and I don't understand why Spurs fan. I mean, I know you're not saying that you want him, Chris. You're just asking the question. But any Spurs fan that is talking about Brendan Rodgers, your standards are too low, and we need to aim higher as a club and as a fan base.
I would love to see Nagelsmann in, same as you. But my worry is, are Spurs going to give someone like him the control that he wants and needs? And it's funny how I say this, because whatever manager comes in, I believe that they should have the control anyway. You know,
100%.
certainly when they're signing players, and you know, for someone like Antonio Conte, a serial winner, been there, done it, got the t-shirt. If someone like that is not in control of his own signings, then what's it going to be like for someone else coming in?
But I think we need to learn from our mistakes. I can understand, you know, with the Conte thing, I don't side with Daniel Levy, but I understand why he possibly didn't give him the keys to the kingdom, because Conte is too volatile and he'll never get tied down. Whenever something goes wrong, he'll never take ownership of it and accountability. It's always, oh, it's them, it's not me. But he also made mistakes. And also, when you're not tying yourself down to a long-term contract, do you really invest in someone like that and then they end up effing off, excuse my French, after, you know, another 6 months, and you're left, you know, in the mire with all of these, again, 100 wing backs, no centre midfielders, no. But if you get someone like a Nagelsmann or a Pochettino, you bring them in on a 3 or 4 year contract, and then you build, and you know that there's that trust. They don't feel they're bigger than the club. They're happy to be here, and we can build together. So for me, that's what we need. Someone obviously who's good enough, first and foremost. Secondly, who wants to be here, is happy to be here, and is looking to build with the club, i.e. bring you through, coach players, and not just worry about the here and now, but you're also looking 3 or 4 years down the line. Because Jose and Conte, fantastic managers, but they were only here for the here and now, win now managers. So you give them the tools to win now. We didn't, and obviously they both went tits up. So for me, basically everything I just said, you know, bringing a hungry manager with a point to prove, that's happy to be here, will invest in the club. Well, obviously bring the signings in, and we'll also look at the club, invest in youth, be ruthless as well. Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, you know, even Oliver Skip, dare I say it, or whoever it is, if they're not good enough, move them on, and then we go again.
What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I would go with the two candidates that Patrick said, for sure. I think for me, it's really important for the fans that when we appoint the manager, that we literally put all the contracts on hold at the moment until the manager's in place. So the manager can look at the squad, and that's including the players that's out on loan, and decide the ones that he wants, and then obviously build that squad for the coming season. I think that's really important. But also, the manager that comes in needs to front up to the fans around the philosophy and not just who he is as a manager, but also where he sees the coming seasons and how he's going to develop the team, and aspirationally as well. I think it was fantastic getting Mourinho in and getting managers like that, and then saying we're going to challenge for the Premier League, where they were never going to do that. In my eyes, they're never going to do that, because Levy was never going to give them the 200-300 million to splash on those kind of players that are going to have that impact. Those Casemiro players that are going to sit in the middle of the field and really dictate play, because he's never done that in the past. When we've recruited, the recruitment's been very poor. We need to change the recruitment, so the manager needs to be part of that recruitment and not just a bystander. He needs to say, this is my player that I want, and this is how he's going to fit into our play. And also, the manager that comes in needs to go, well, I've been watching Spurs over the last 1-2 seasons, and these are the things that I think are wrong with the club and the team, and let's change that. And it needs to be all through the club. And like you know, Chris, obviously not only the 21s, the first team, but also the women's team as well. We've got failure through the team, and that does affect the mentality of the club for sure. I've been into the club this season. I was lucky enough to go in to do a talk with the women's team at the start of the season, and it seemed to be collectively a great group of coaches and young players. But I think what you need that nastiness in the team. You need that leadership. You need the bite. You need somebody that's going to like suffer. And you know, when you listen to the teams that are successful, they always talk about the level of suffering, but that just show that as well. It's not like Højbjerg talking about sometimes we need to suffer. No, You need to suffer every game. You need to give 110%. You need to come off the pitch absolutely exhausted. Sonny today was the last person from the team off the pitch, and he was gutted. He'd given his all. He'd ran his socks off. Yes, he'd given away possession a little bit, but he'd given everything. Did I see that for all the players? No, I didn't. And that's what we need to see.
Yeah, it's always Son and Kane. They always come over to the away fans. Always, those two. They're the best at doing that. And just going back to your point on the women's team, they've had some horrific injuries this season, which really haven't helped. Rich, just a quick yes or no. Would you be surprised if Spurs appointed Mason as the next permanent manager?
I don't see how they can. I don't see how they can. I think there'll be a massive uprising from the fans, because you're not going to attract the players that we need to attract to get top four. I just don't. I think it's a step backwards. I think.
But when people say we need a young and up-and-coming manager, and when you got Ryan Mason, when you got Mason in the first conference saying, basically he's come out and said, "I want the job,"
but you would do. You would do. It's a golden ticket, isn't it? It's a golden ticket, and to be able to. But it's a free hit for him as well. If he's successful, amazing, and he's one of our own, and he's successful. If he's not successful, he gave it a go. Well, that's not good enough. Giving it a go isn't good enough. Just because you're best mates with Harry Kane isn't good enough. For me, we need to have a manager that comes in that changes the whole philosophy around the club. He isn't that character. He doesn't. He even in his interviews, I just don't see it. I don't see it. For me, I'd be very disappointed, and I don't see how the club has aspirations to get back into the Champions League. If that's the case, I would say, would I be surprised? I think I still would be surprised. I think it's an easy route, but I don't think it's a route that even Daniel Levy would take just because it would save him a bit of money.
Patrick, I'm going to jump to you on this next subject, because I know you wanted to talk about the Harry Kane Sky interview. We're just going to talk about Harry Kane, then we're going to just talk very briefly about the next game against Crystal Palace. So it won't be too much longer. Patrick, on the Harry Kane Sky interview, what did you make of Harry Kane's comments? Because a lot of pundits and a lot of fans have come out and said it's great about what he said, that they feel that he might be at the club next season and perhaps beyond. Some people have criticised him for not calling certain things out or certain players out. What did you make of the interview?
I mean, nothing he said isn't what we were already thinking and already know. Harry Kane's very smart. He never strays too far from the middle of the line. So, he'll say something, but it's never sensational. He'll never really give you what he's really thinking. Very well spoken, very media trained. Just, toes the line. Says enough, but doesn't say, says a little, but doesn't say a lot. Same way when Daniel Levy had his Cambridge interview. He answered questions, but they were short and sharp, and it almost leaves you to then take away what you want to take away from it. So, like, people are like, Harry Kane's staying, he loves the club. But you can look at the other way. It's not really, you can't really digest or divulge too much into it. But everything he said is what we already know. We haven't been good enough this season. We have lost our identity. We already knew that. And with the whole Conte and Mourinho appointments, I understand where Levy was going. He wanted to win now. We were all screaming out for trophies. But it probably would have been better if he would have went down the project route, dare I say, and we would have built to this moment, because it would have been more sustainable, and we would have still had something where you rip it up for Jose, you rip it up for Conte, and now we've got to start again. And unfortunately, we're starting again with nothing to show for the other 3 or 4 years. So, Kane, I like the fact that Kane does come out and talk. He doesn't shy away from it. Other people are like, why does Kane always have to talk, get someone else? But if Kane doesn't come out and talk, people will be saying, why isn't Kane talking? He's our talisman. Not our captain per se, but he is a captain. He's the face of the club. So I do rate it that he's come out and said it. But I wish he would just say a bit more than what he says, if you get what I mean. Like, sometimes if you're going to come out and talk. But again, maybe then people will say you've gone too far. You're giving too much away. So he can't win, can he? He's damned if he does.
I've got a question to that then. So if we get Nagelsmann say he comes, and then Levy says we're cashing on Kane and we do a rebuild like Bale, would you reckon that would be a wise thing to do, to properly rebuild and have somebody like Richarlison up there, and then have like that kind of money.
As long as there's a plan, fans won't be happy, but maybe as long as we can see some sort of plan and philosophy and identity, maybe then we can get behind it. Because what if Nagelsmann comes in and says, you know what, for me to get what I need, Kane has to go? Then what happens? Is there a sound off between the fans and the coach? Because ultimately, if we trust Nagelsmann to come in and do the rebuild, there might be a few uncomfortable conversations. He might turn around and say, I'm not feeling this Son and Kane partnership. One of them needs to go. I want to bring in someone else. So everyone said, you know, we scream and cry for Nagelsmann or Poch, but top managers will come in with their own plans, and we might not like it to begin with. But what if Nagelsmann comes in, says he doesn't want Son or Kane, and then we go 3 or 4 games unbeaten? Then what happens? Will the fans still stick by him, knowing it's a long-term thing, or will we start screaming, you know, and moaning in the stadium because we're not happy with what we see? So this is the thing. Fans have to understand that it can be quite rough to begin with. So good point, Richard. I don't know. I would like to think if we do get a top manager in, I'll give him the time. If it's someone like Brendan Rodgers or Ryan Mason, no chance. And I like Ryan Mason. I don't want to. I'm not singling him out, but he's too, you know, immature and too young to be a manager at Spurs right now, especially this Spurs. If it was Spurs that had been built under a Nagelsmann or a Poch and he had left them and we could see an identity, we could see a foundation, and he's just coming in to build off that, fantastic. But not right now. We're in too much of a mess. This is probably the biggest job and appointment that we've had in a long time in terms of getting it right. So it can't be someone like a Ryan Mason. He's not ready. He's not ready for the job.
It's like the Steven Gerrard situation with Villa and Lampard with Chelsea. I just don't think they've really built their career to actually gain that.
Exactly.
But that's what I was saying to you guys, where, look, Ryan Mason could become a good manager, but cut his teeth in the lower leagues.
Exactly.
Learn your craft down there. You don't, you know, it's like any other, almost like any other profession. You don't just catapult your way to the top without working and gaining experience. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to interject.
Who do the comments want as manager then? Who do they?
It's all very mixed, Rich. It's all very, very mixed. And of course, we have no idea of who is going to be appointed the next Spurs manager. But I thought I'd throw it out there because when I saw the Ryan Mason press conference and he pretty much come out and said, I want the job, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Spurs went down that option. Nothing would surprise me anymore. You would
do. It's a golden ticket. Of course you would do. It's like
he will save thousands if he hires him. I mean, I'm being a bit cynical, but you know, he'll save a lot of bunts.
Andy, what does your gut tell you? Do you think Harry Kane will be a Spurs player next season? Will he see out his contract until the end and then leave on a free transfer? How do you see this panning out?
Oh God! If I was Nostradamus, I could tell you. I had the gifts of.
Because if you were Harry Kane, what would be going through your mind if you were Harry Kane right now?
Well, I mean, it could be a case of, well, look, I've had it with this lot. You know, he could go to United. I don't know. Or is it a case where he does? All right, let me just see it from this angle, where he does see out his contract and he goes on a free transfer. I know that might sound ridiculous, but you know, I don't know. Hasn't he got another kid on the way?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, on the other hand, I can't really see him going abroad to Europe.
No, what's that?
Yeah, I mean, he could go up to Manchester, you know, take an umbrella up there with him,
And Chelsea.
Chelsea would be comfortable, wouldn't it, really?
I'm telling you, you look at their team, what they're missing. I'm telling you, that's where he's going.
You're not wrong. Yeah, running around with all the Sloanies and that, and calling people
Not a chance.
Paul Poppet, hello, darling, you can come into my world. But
that's what Pochettino will say. I'm telling you, he'll say, "I want one player."
I tell you, what on earth we do? What on earth are we doing to Patrick? You're saying Harry Kane's going to Chelsea. I'm saying Mason's going to take the job. Andy's saying Brendan Rodgers is going to get the job. What are we doing to him?
Oh man!
Look, I tell you what. Before whoever gets the Tottenham job, whether it's Nagelsmann or Rodgers, whoever, they have seriously got their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
You know, as you guys said, look, he's going to walk in, as Patrick says, he'll be thinking, right, you, and you. Oh, and by the way, you and all, out you go. And he's going to have to rebuild, and it could take several seasons. This is why I said to you earlier on in the programme that the Bold and Navy have seriously got to look at themselves and seriously got to get this right. Because if they don't, it could... I mean, I'm being somewhat histrionic, but if they don't get this right, this could seriously set us back. Because who knows? I mean, look, now, we've got the big stuff, everything else. Will we be, if it all goes wrong, how much of a proposition will we be as a big club to a manager?
I think it's fair to say, though, Andy, that it has set us back since 2019. Since we sacked Pochettino, we have really been set back in a number of decisions that the club have made. So I think that there's proof there. There's enough proof there.
Yeah, I know, but it could even get worse, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Look, you know, there are big clubs like us who have struggled, who have gone down. As I say, I just think the board have got to get this right.
Yeah. Right, last thing to talk about. Of course, Spurs have 4 games left in the Premier League. Crystal Palace up next on Saturday, the 6th of May. They are currently 11th in the Premier League table. They have been flying under Roy Hodgson. 6 games in charge since his return, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. And then after that, we face Aston Villa away, Brentford at home, and Leeds United away. Aston Villa are now fighting for a European spot, as are Brentford. Leeds United are fighting for a place in the Premier League. So these are all 4 very, very difficult games. Patrick, let's start with you. Since Roy Hodgson has returned, Palace have had a 2-1 win against Leicester, a 5-1 win against Leeds, a 2-0 win against Southampton, a 1-1 draw against Everton, 2-0 defeat against Wolves, and only yesterday a 4-3 win at home against West Ham at Selhurst Park. Many people raised their eyebrows when Patrick Vieira was sacked and Roy Hodgson come back, but it seems that this has been a fantastic decision for Crystal Palace.
Yeah, it has, because you know, we all liked Patrick Vieira, a youngish manager. I mean, obviously, forget his Arsenal ties. You know, we never liked him for that reason. But in terms of coming in as a manager, he looked good when he first came in. They went on a long streak of not winning the game, and it kind of went under the radar until we all noticed it. And they was really struggling for confidence. And Hodgson's come in and really picked them up. They've got some good attacking players. Eze's looks really good. Elise's fantastic on the ball. I would actually like Elise at our team. I think he's really good in the middle of the park, and he knows how to link up play. He's really good at finding players and breaking lines. I think he'd be a fantastic addition for us, to be fair. Really good player. Obviously, we all know what Zaha can do. And then you've got other guys like Ayew who, on his day, can score a goal or 2. So they've got a decent front line. And watching them yesterday and over the last couple of weeks, they do play decent attacking football. So they will be... I expect Spurs to beat them when they come to our ground. But if we play the way we've been playing in the first half, again, we could be 2 or 3 goals down before we actually wake up and start to play. So we need to respect them because they are in good form at the moment. But if we play how we've been playing in the second half of games, I think we should have enough to get across the line. But like you said, Chris, every game we're playing is difficult for different reasons. Aston Villa are right on our heels. And when you put up the table earlier, they've got literally an identical record to us. Same amount of wins, same amount of draws, same amount of losses, and we probably got +2 more on the goal difference. It's insane. We're just as good as Aston Villa, or just as bad. Like, I can't believe it. that is mental. But all credit to Emery, because when he's come in and shown that even without a transfer window, the difference of what a good manager can do. And when he comes out, he's talking. He's like, I'm not afraid to have expectations. I want us to finish in Europe. You know, he's someone that got ridiculed at Arsenal for his English, and obviously he struggled there. Went back to Villarreal, won a few Europa Leagues, come into the Premier League and shown he's a good manager. So it just goes to show, I mean, you know, as a Spurs fans, it's all doom and gloom right now. We're in a really bad way. But once you get a good manager, things can change and change quite quickly. Eddie Howe's shown you that at Newcastle. And now, obviously, Unai Emery's shown you that. And hopefully, if we do get some dross out and bring some good players in, we can be a good team again. Because we have good individual players. We have good moments. You know, we are where we are in the league. Someone looking in will say, oh, but you're fifth, you're sixth. It's not that bad. But considering we had ample opportunities to go third, ample opportunities to increase our stretch in the top four, and we didn't take it. And now we're sliding down the table. It's not good. And our football hasn't been good all season. Honest Spurs fans will tell you that. But a good manager will come in and change things. So it's not all doom and gloom, but there is obviously some things we need to work on. But when you look at those games, Leeds, we should win. But obviously, if they're fighting for their lives, it's going to be very difficult. Aston Villa is always going to be a toughie. They've got their tails up. And we're considered a big team. We're a scalp. These teams that are considered lesser teams, like your Newcastles, your Villas, when they play us, they'll be up for it. So if we're not up for the fight, we get played off the park like we did at St. James's. So some tough games, Chris.
Patrick, at this stage, though, with 4 games to go, would you be happy under all of the circumstances? And it's been a very long season, a very frustrating season for us all. Would you be happy with a Europa League spot?
No, I would rather we finish 8th. And people, it pains me to say it because I always want my club to finish as high up the league as possible. But I think a reset without European football, without that distraction, because will we really take the Europa League seriously? Maybe a new manager would. But I've seen Pochettino not take it seriously. I've seen Jose Mourinho not take it seriously. Conte obviously wasn't in there. But even when I looked at that second leg performance against AC Milan, I can't tell you that he took that seriously. We were only 1-0 down at home, and the guy didn't even try and win that game. So I don't see the guys taking European football seriously. So I'd rather not be in it for a season, and then we can just focus on the domestic trophies, really go for those, and obviously really push back in the league. So right now, when we're sitting 6th, 7th, I'd rather we just bin it completely. I don't want to be in the Conference League. Even if we won the Conference League trophy, we'd still get bantered for it. It still wouldn't be good enough anyway. So forget that competition. Europa League is tough. That Sunday, Thursday cycle is horrible, especially at this stage of the season. So if it's not Champions League football, which it's not going to be, I'd rather we finish 8th and then really realign our values and go again next season.
Patrick, what's your score prediction for the Palace game Saturday?
2-0 Spurs. We actually keep a clean sheet again.
I'm glad you're finishing on a positive. Rick, how are you feeling ahead of this game? And I'm completely with Patrick because Eze, I think, is a fantastic player for Palace. And he is a player that we scouted for so long and very, very nearly signed. But then, of course, he went to Palace.
Yeah, awesome player. Yeah, awesome. I think he's gained with experience in the league, gained confidence. He's a very confident player, you can tell. He's not scared of taking on a responsibility, like a last-minute free kick, like he's done recently and scored. Or even he's good with the ball at his feet. He's quick thinking, pacey, which, again, it's like you look at the players that we've got, we need to move the ball quicker. We need to have somebody like him, young, enthusiastic, lots of energy. I think he'll be a great addition. Obviously, he's a Palace player at the moment. I think Palace will be a threat. They're not as much of a threat away from home than they are at home. But obviously, Roy Hodgson sets up his teams very well to defend. I think he'll bring his team to hit us on the break, but maybe to utilise those 30s or those first 15 minutes and try and kind of get those wingers into the game as best as he can. If Zaha's fit, maybe get him on the ball in those attacking areas and try and open us up. I think they might score. I think we'll win. I think Richarlison will score again. I think it'll be 2 or 3-1. I think.
And are you feeling confident as well as Richard and Patrick?
I'm never confident. I'm never ever confident. In fact, I've said it before, but guys, I'm not a glass half full or glass empty. In fact, when it comes to Tottenham, I've never even got a glass. But we've got Alice. Look, I think, beg pardon. Patrick was right. Once the dust has settled tomorrow, I can think be a bit more objective and say, well, look, second half, that was a real sterling. We went out like gladiators in the end, even though, getting back to Palace. All right, let's go. We win 2-1. I'll give it 2-1. I like the two boys that you both mentioned, Eze and Elise, very, very talented. And also, those boys have got legs. They've got an engine.
Yeah.
They have a real engine. Eze's, this is what I was talking about, penetration through midfield. We haven't got that, lads. As I say, I'm sorry to be so repetitive, but we have a squad. The midfield is laced with deep-lying or defensive midfield players, and that has been such a huge drawback to us. It really has. That's one of the reasons why we're averaging about 35% possession, even at home. We're overrun. It would be nice to see someone like that. Yes, okay, I'll go Tottenham 2-1.
Andy, in terms of league position, where do you hope and where do you think Spurs will finish at the end of the season? Do you want European football?
I think we'll probably end up 7th. I agree with Robert. Maybe it could be a good idea if we did actually go a year without the Thursday Cup or go into, I don't know, these countries with no consonants in them, or vowels, or, but these sort of one donkey towns that you can barely see on the map, but
Ferreira.
But
Pacos de Ferreira.
Yeah, yes, I don't know. Izaki Stan, somewhere around the fucking Olympics. That'll be the one, won't it? Yeah. That'll be it. Where it's so cold, Eskimos are crying. But I agree with Patrick. Maybe it could be a good idea if we ended up 8th and we had a season where we concentrated on domestic trophies and we had the occasional 3 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah. Well, of course, our next game is a 3 o'clock kickoff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next Saturday. Let's hope that Spurs can get back to winning ways. Rich, thanks so much for joining me this evening. Please tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment and what's next.
Probably I'm here next time we lose. Just back training. So Marathon Champ Twitter, and then Instagram. People know where to find me. But I think like you were saying, Andy, obviously dust settles and then we can go again. I think it's just really important that we understand that that the Conte era is finished, of that negativity. And then we need to move forward. It's not as bad as Mourinho. I hated Mourinho. And hopefully whoever we get is backed and we push on next season. But yeah, I'm just getting sick of this season. It's there's no real positives. I think it looks like Chris is just about to get a ticket in his car. There's definitely no light left, so he must be getting a ticket.
I'm trying to speed it up.
I was just taking his wheels. I saw one side up then. I was just taking his wheels that he spent £250 buying last week.
And Patrick, thanks so much for coming back. Would love to have you back on the show in the near future. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Been a pleasure. Richard, fantastic jumping on with you, and the same as well, Andy. My socials for the people listening in is Patrick Tyrant. So Patrick and then TYRANT. It's at the bottom right there. That's Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, I'm on quite a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. My YouTube channels are Chatty Patty, talking all things Spurs and everything like that. So yeah, catch me on there. Follow me on Twitter, and you'll see what I'm up to. And Chris, great show. Thanks for having me on. Always tough, especially after a loss like today, but it's been fun. It's been some good therapy.
Thank you, Patrick. And I told you at the very start, Andy would make us all laugh, even though we lost today. Andy, it's been a pleasure having you back. What are you up to at the moment, and where can people find you?
Well, yeah, I'm at the council, one of my shows, nothing to do with Tottenham. Baxter versus the Bookies. It's a one-man play about the fluctuating fortunes of a horse racing tipster. I enjoy horse racing. Isn't as painful as watching Tottenham. But I've had to cancel. I will be doing it in the autumn in London. Thanks so much for putting up with my somewhat meandering and ramblings. It's been a pleasure once again, Chris. Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys, Richard, Pat, for your wonderful opinions and being insightful. Yeah, I'm rambling again. I'm going to end up down some verbal cul-de-sac if I ain't careful. But yeah, thanks so much, Chris, for having me back on. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Richard, Patrick, and Andy. Thanks to everybody who has tuned in to the YouTube stream, and of course the audio platforms as well. We will be back next Saturday to talk about the Crystal Palace game. Hopefully we can get the 3 points and climb up that Premier League table and secure European football of some kind next season. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Until then, come on, you Spurs.
Bye now.